The church smelled like old flowers and thick smoke that made my throat hurt. I stood at the back door. My hands were shaking as I touched the heavy wooden door. The rough wood felt real. Everything else felt like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. 3 days, that's how long it had been since Dad's funeral. 3 days since I learned about the money he owed. The gambling, the promises he made to dangerous men. 3 days since a scary name became the boss of my life. Luca Romano. I'd never seen him before yesterday. I didn't know that monsters could wear expensive suits and act like they owned everything. But now I knew. Oh boy, did I know now. The wedding dress they brought me was heavy, all silk and lace. It cost more money than my whole year of nursing school. It fit perfectly, which somehow made everything worse. They'd been watching me, planning this, knowing my size. I couldn't breathe right. Through the crack in the door, I saw the church filling up with strangers. Men in dark suits with mean eyes. Women covered in diamonds that sparkled like ice in the candlelight. Nobody from my real life, no friends. Mom died when I was 12. Dad died 3 days ago. He left me with nothing but debt. And this fake marriage that was really just a business deal. Miss Russo. The voice behind me was soft but firm. I turned around. An older woman stood there, elegant in a dark blue dress. Her silver hair was pulled up nice and neat. She'd told me yesterday her name was Mrs. Romano, but I knew that wasn't her real job here. It's time, she said. I can't. The words scraped out of my throat. Please, there has to be another way. I can work. I can pay back whatever Your father owed $3 million. Her voice wasn't mean, but it had no softness either. Money borrowed from Mr. Romano's family. Money that was supposed to buy important things that never came. Your father gambled it all away instead. That kind of lying requires payment. Then take everything, the house, the car, whatever. There is nothing left. She stepped closer. I smelled flowers. Gardenias, this is mercy, child. Mr. Romano could have demanded blood. Instead, he's demanded you. Mercy. I wanted to laugh, but my throat felt like it had broken glass in it. Why? I whispered. Why me? He doesn't even know me. Something crossed Mrs. Romano's face, surprise maybe, or pity. That's not a question I can answer, but I can tell you this. Luca Romano always has his reasons, and he always gets what he wants. She fixed my veil with gentle hands that felt like a cage closing. Through the thin white lace, everything looked softer, hazier, like I was already disappearing. The organ music got loud. My walking tom. I do music, Mrs. Romano opened the door all the way, and I saw him for the second time in my life. Luca Romano stood at the altar like a king looking at his kingdom. Even from far away, I could feel how powerful he was. Everyone in the church seemed to circle around him, pulled by some dark magic. He wore black, of course, a suit that probably cost more than most people make in a whole year. Cut to show off his broad shoulders, the strong way he was built. But it was his face that made my heart stop. Yesterday, when his men came to get me, I'd been too shocked to really look at him. I'd noticed the sharp jawline, the dark hair swept back from his forehead, the way he'd looked at me like he was taking a mental picture. But I'd been numb, drowning in sadness and fear. Now, standing at the start of this forced wedding, I really looked. He was young, maybe 30 or 30. Too, that shocked me. I'd expected someone older, harder, a crime boss with gray hair and mean wrinkles. Instead, Luca Romano was beautiful the way a sharp knife is beautiful. All clean lines and dangerous purpose. His face looked carved from stone, high cheekbones, a straight nose that had probably been broken once, a mouth that looked like it rarely smiled, but his eyes, God, his eyes. Even across the whole church, I felt them lock onto me. They were the color of dark honey with bits of gold, burning with a focus that made my skin prickle. He didn't look away, didn't blink, just watched me like I was the only thing in the world. Walk, Mrs. Romano whispered, "Don't run, don't hesitate, you'll only make it worse." My feet moved without asking permission, carrying me down an aisle lined with strangers. Each step felt like walking into deeper water. I tried to focus on breathing. In through my nose, out through my mouth, but the smoke was too thick and my dress was too tight, and he was still staring at me like I was the only thing that mattered. I noticed details to keep from breaking down. The two men standing just behind him, clearly bodyguards even though they wore expensive suits. One was huge, built like a wall with a scar running from his temple to his jaw. The other was thinner, watchful, his hand resting near where I guessed he kept a gun. Neither looked at me. They scanned the crowd. The windows, the doors, always moving, always watching for danger. The priest looked uncomfortable, his hands fidgeting with his Bible. He was young too, with sweat on his forehead, even though the air was cool. And then I was there, standing beside Luca Romano, close enough to smell him. Expensive cologne mixed with something darker, richer, leather and smoke, and something metallic that made me think of blood. He turned to face me fully. I had to tilt my head way back to meet his eyes. He was tall, at least 6 feet 2 inches. Standing this close, I could see the small details that made him real instead of a nightmare. The shadow of stubble on his jaw, the tiny scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the way his lips opened slightly as he looked at my mouth. Elena, my name in his voice was like velvet over steel, deep with a tiny trace of an accent that said his family hadn't been in America for very long. You look beautiful. I wanted to spit at him, scream, run. Instead, I stood frozen as he reached up slowly. Carefully, and lifted my veil. His fingers brushed my cheek, just barely, just enough to make me flinch. And something flashed in his eyes, satisfaction, possession. Don't be afraid, he said quietly, so quiet only I could hear. I'm not going to hurt you, liar. The word burned in my throat, but I couldn't force it out because there was something in his voice that didn't match what was happening. Something almost gentle. It made no sense. This man had bought me, forced me into a wedding dress in a church full of criminals. He was a monster, so why was he looking at me like I was something precious? The priest cleared his throat. Dearly beloved, the ceremony passed in pieces, words I didn't understand, vows I didn't mean. When it came time for Luca to put the ring on my finger, I watched his hands. Large, long fingers, surprisingly elegant, and noticed the scars across his knuckles, old ones, white against his tanned skin. Evidence of fighting that had healed but never really disappeared. The ring was platinum and diamonds. Heavy and cold, a chain dressed up as jewelry. You may kiss the bride. Luca's hand cupped my face, tilting my chin up with his thumb. His touch was gentle, too gentle for a man who could order people killed with a phone call. His eyes searched mine for something I didn't understand, and then his mouth came down. The kiss was soft, careful, nothing like what I'd expected from a man who'd forced me here. His lips moved against mine with a gentleness that made my chest ache. And when he pulled back, his thumb brushed across my cheekbone, catching a tear I hadn't known I'd cried. Mine, he breathed against my lips, so quiet I almost didn't hear it. Finally mine. The word should have scared me. Instead, it sent something hot and confusing through my stomach. The church erupted in applause, hollow. Forced, Luca's hand found the small of my back, possessive and warm through the silk of my dress. He guided me back down the aisle. I felt hundreds of eyes on us, judging, calculating, wondering if I'd last, wondering if I'd break. Outside, the afternoon sun felt like a slap after the dim church. A line of black cars waited, all identical. All shining, Luca opened the door of the middle one himself, his other hand never leaving my back. He helped me into the leather interior. The door closed with a heavy sound, soundproof. Luca slid in beside me. Suddenly, the big back seat felt tiny. His leg pressed against mine, all hard muscle and heat. The driver pulled away without needing to be told. I watched the church disappear through the dark windows. Where are we going? My voice came out smaller than I wanted. Home. He was watching me again. That intense focus that made me feel naked and invisible at the same time. Our home. I don't have a home anymore. Bitterness leaked through. You made sure of that. His jaw tightened. Your father made sure of that when he stole from me. He was grieving. The words exploded out of me. My mother had just died and he wasn't thinking straight. He made mistakes, but he didn't deserve. He stole $3 million, Elena. Luca's voice was calm, almost casual, which somehow made it worse. For my family's shipment, money that belonged to people far less forgiving than me. If I hadn't acted, they would have, and they wouldn't have been satisfied with money. I turned to look at him fully, anger burning away my fear. So you decided to collect me instead, like I'm property, like you're my wife. His hand shot out, catching my chin in a grip that was firm but didn't hurt. He forced me to meet his eyes. What I saw there made my breath catch. Hunger, raw, barely controlled hunger that had nothing to do with business and everything to do with the way he kept looking at my mouth. You are my wife now, Elena, mine to protect, mine to keep. And anyone who tries to touch what's mine will learn exactly why people fear the Romano name. The estate appeared through the trees like something out of a dream. All stone and iron gates that opened without Luca, needing to signal. The driveway curved through perfect gardens, past fountains and marble statues that belonged in museums, not front yards. I'd known he was rich. You didn't become a mafia boss by being poor. But this was crazy. Old money and new violence mixed into something that made my tiny apartment look like a cardboard box. The car stopped in front of huge double doors. Before I could reach for the handle, Luca was already there opening it. Offering his hand, I ignored it, climbed out on my own. My wedding dress caught on the doorframe. I heard the fabric tear. A small, satisfying sound of rebellion. His lips twitched, almost a smile, almost stubborn. He said quietly, "Good, I hate weak things. Then you should have married someone else." I lifted my chin, trying to be brave when I didn't feel brave at all. I didn't ask for this. I don't want this, and I certainly don't want you. Now he did smile, and it changed his face from beautiful to devastating. You will. The confidence should have made me hate him more. Instead, it sent heat crawling up my neck. I blamed shock, stress, anything except the traitorous flutter in my stomach when his hand settled on my lower back again. Guiding me toward the doors, they opened before we got there. A woman stood in the entrance, maybe 50 years old, perfectly dressed, with kind eyes that seemed out of place in this world. "Welcome home, Mr. Romano, Mrs. Romano, Mrs. Romano." The name felt like a brand. "Elena, this is Maria. She manages the household." Luca's thumb moved in small circles against my spine. A move that seemed automatic but felt purposely possessive. "Anything you need, she'll arrange it. Your room is ready." My room. I looked up at him sharply. "Not our room." Something dark flickered across his face. "Did you want to share my bed tonight, little wife? Because I'm more than willing to make this marriage real right now, if that's what you're asking for." My face burned. "That's not, I didn't mean. I know what you meant." His voice dropped lower, intimate even though Maria stood right there. "You'll have your own space until you're ready. I'm not an animal, Elena. I don't force women into my bed." "No, you just force them into marriage." His jaw clenched. For a moment, I thought I'd pushed too far. Then he turned to Maria, show her to her room, make sure she has everything she needs. He paused. "And Maria?" His eyes met mine again, burning with that inexplicable intensity. "Don't let her leave the estate, for her own protection." Protection. Another word for prison. Maria led me through rooms that blurred together, marble floors, crystal chandeliers. Art that probably cost more than my father's debts. I counted security cameras in every corner, noticed the men stationed at important points, all wearing suits that didn't quite hide their weapons. This wasn't just a home, it was a fortress. Here we are. Maria opened a door at the end of a long hallway. I stepped into a bedroom that could have fit my entire old apartment 3 times over. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over gardens lit by the setting sun. A huge bed took up one wall. Dressed in silk sheets that probably cost more than a month's rent. Everything was cream and gold and soft. Like a cage built for a fancy bird. The closet is through there. Maria pointed to a door on the left. Mr. Romano had it stocked with clothing in your size. Shoes, accessories, everything. The bathroom is through the other door. If you need anything, how long? The question came out hoarse. How long have I been watched? Maria's expression turned pitying. I don't know those details, dear, but Mr. Romano is very thorough in everything he does. She left me alone in the beautiful prison. I immediately went to the windows. They didn't open, locked from the outside probably. I could see the grounds stretching out below, more gardens, a pool, what looked like a guest house. And everywhere, men patrolling, watching. I turned to the closet out of morbid curiosity, found exactly what Maria had promised. Racks of dresses, casual clothes, everything from designer jeans to evening gowns, all my size, all brands I'd never been able to afford. I grabbed a simple pair of black pants and a soft sweater, desperate to get out of the wedding dress that felt like it was choking me. The bathroom was all marble and gold with a tub big enough to swim in. I caught sight of myself in the mirror. Barely recognized the woman staring back. My dark hair had been curled and pinned, my makeup done by professionals who'd arrived that morning. I looked like a bride, like someone who'd chosen this. I scrubbed my face until my skin burned, tore the pins from my hair until it fell in messy waves around my shoulders. Better, more like myself, less like property. A knock on the bedroom door made me freeze. Elena, dinner is ready. Luca's voice, low and smooth and somehow already familiar. I didn't answer, but I heard the door open anyway, of course. His house, his rules. When I came out of the bathroom in my borrowed clothes, he was standing by the windows, still in his wedding suit, but with his jacket off and his sleeves rolled up to show forearms with muscle and scattered scars. He'd loosened his tie. Something about that small bit of comfort made him seem more human, more dangerous. He turned when he heard me. His gaze traveled slowly from my bare feet to my wet hair. You look more comfortable. I'm not comfortable. I'm trapped. I crossed my arms over my chest. You said I couldn't leave. That's called kidnapping. That's called keeping you alive. He moved toward me with that dangerous grace I'd noticed in the church. Your father's friends aren't the only ones who know about his debts, Elena. There are people who would use you to get to me now that you're my wife. People who would hurt you just to send me a message, then divorce me, send me away, I'll disappear. No, the word was absolute, final. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to keep eye contact. You're mine now. That means you stay where I can protect you, where I can see you, where I know you're safe. I don't need your protection. I need my freedom. His hand came up. I flinched automatically. He froze. Something that looked like pain crossed his face. I told you, he said softly. I'm not going to hurt you, Elena. I need you to believe that. Why? The question burst out of me. Why do you even care? You don't know me. This is just business to you, isn't it? Collecting a debt. Is that what you think? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. That I forced you to marry me because of money. What else am I supposed to think? He was quiet for a long moment, studying me with those burning eyes. Then he stepped back, creating distance that somehow felt worse than closeness. Come have dinner. You haven't eaten all day. I'm not hungry. Elena, my name was a warning. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I'm trying to be patient. I'm trying to give you space to adjust. But you need to eat. And you need to understand the rules here. Rules? I laughed bitterly. Of course there are rules. One rule. He held up a single finger. You don't leave the estate without me or my security. That's it. Everything else is yours to do as you please. You want to scream at me? Fine. You want to hate me? I can live with that. But you will not put yourself in danger because you're angry about a situation neither of us can change. You could change it. You could let me go. No. He moved to the door, then stopped and looked back at me. I've waited too long for you, Elena. I'm not letting you go now. Not ever. The words should have sounded threatening. Instead, they sounded almost anguished. He left before I could respond. I stood alone in my golden cage, trying to understand what the hell he'd meant by that. Dinner was served in a dining room that could have seated 30 people. But it was just the two of us at one end of a table that stretched into shadow, crystal glasses, fine china. Food that smelled incredible and tasted like ash in my mouth. Luca ate with the same focused intensity he seemed to use for everything, occasionally glancing up at me through dark lashes. He'd taken off his tie completely now, unbuttoned his collar. I tried not to notice the hollow of his throat, the hint of tan skin beneath the white shirt. Tell me about yourself. His voice broke the silence. Why? You clearly already know everything. I know facts, your age, where you worked, that you were studying to be a nurse before your father died. He set down his fork, giving me that complete attention that felt like standing under a spotlight. I don't know you, and whose fault is that? I pushed food around my plate. Normal people date before they get married, get to know each other, fall in. I cut myself off, fall in love. He finished for me. Something in his tone made my skin prickle. Is that what you wanted, Elena? Romance? Dates? I wanted a choice. Life rarely gives us those. He leaned back in his chair. I noticed how the movement made his shirt pull tight across his chest. But I can give you honesty. Ask me anything. I'll answer. It was a trap. Had to be, but curiosity won over caution. Why me? Out of all the ways you could have collected my father's debt, why did you choose marriage? His expression shifted into something I couldn't read. What if I told you it wasn't about the debt? I'd say you were lying. I've never lied to you, Elena, not once. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. The candlelight caught the gold in his eyes. Your father's betrayal gave me an excuse. The debt is already paid as far as I'm concerned. My heart hammered against my ribs. What are you saying? I'm saying I've known who you were for a long time, longer than you'd believe. He stood suddenly. I tensed, but he just walked to the windows, overlooking the dark gardens. I saw you 2 years ago at the hospital where you were working. You were in the cafeteria during your break, studying for a test. You had coffee and a muffin. You were so focused you didn't note. When you got chocolate on your nose, I stared at his back, trying to process his words. 2 years ago. Before my father's debts, before any of this, you smiled at a child who was crying. He continued, his voice softer now, gave him your muffin and told him a story about a brave knight. He stopped crying. His mother thanked you. You said it was nothing, just kindness. He paused. Luca, I watched you walk away and I couldn't stop thinking about you. He turned back to face me. What I saw in his expression made my breath catch. Hunger, longing. Obsession barely held in check. I told myself it was crazy, that I had no business wanting someone like you. Someone good and pure and completely untouched by my world. But I couldn't stay away. I had my people find out everything about you, where you lived, where you worked, your favorite coffee shop, the route you took home every night, that stalking. My voice came out shaky. Yes, he didn't even try to deny it. It is, and when I found out about your father's debt, when I realized I had a way to bind you to me legally, I took it. I'm not proud of twisting the situation, but I won't apologize for wanting you, Elena, for taking the only chance I might ever have to make you mine. The room felt too small suddenly. Too hot, you're insane. Probably. He moved toward me again. This time I couldn't make myself back away. But I've spent 2 years watching you, wanting you. Imagining what it would be like to have you look at me the way you looked at that child, with softness, with trust. His hand lifted, hesitating just before touching my face. I know you hate me right now. I know you're angry and scared, and you think I'm a monster, and maybe I am, but I will spend every day proving that I can take care of you, that I can keep you safe. That marrying me wasn't the worst thing that could have happened to you. You forced me into this. Tears burned my eyes. You took away my choice, my future, everything. I gave you a future. His thumb brushed across my cheek. Catching a tear, the gentleness of the gesture broke something in me. One where you're protected, provided for, where you never have to worry about money or safety or being alone. I know it's not what you wanted, but it's what I'm offering. The only thing I have to give. I don't want your money or your protection. The lie tasted bitter. I want my life back. Then hate me. His hand cupped my face fully now. Tilting my chin up, scream at me, fight me, but do it from here where I know you're safe, where I can see you every day and know that you're alive and breathing and mine?" The last word came out rough, almost broken. Suddenly, I understood what I was seeing in his eyes, what I'd been seeing since the church. It wasn't just possession or control. It was desperation, need like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning. It terrified me because somewhere in the past few hours, I'd started to see him too. Not as a monster or a villain or the man who destroyed my life, but as a man who looked at me like I was the only thing in the world worth looking at. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. I didn't sleep that night. How could I, knowing that somewhere in this huge house Luca was awake too, thinking about me with that obsessive intensity that made my skin feel too tight. The bed was comfortable. Too comfortable, like sleeping on a cloud, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, the way he looked at me during dinner. Like he was memorizing every detail, the rough edge in his voice when he'd called me his, the gentleness of his touch against my cheek. So different from everything I knew about him. A mafia boss, a criminal, a man who'd admitted to stalking me for 2 years. I should have been planning my escape. Instead, I was replaying the conversation, trying to understand the pieces that didn't fit. The tenderness in his eyes, the almost vulnerable way he'd said he wanted me to look at him with softness. When dawn finally broke, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I gave up on sleep, went to the windows. The grounds looked different in daylight, less fortress, more estate. I could see the gardens properly now. Paths winding through roses and hedges. A fountain in the center with bronze horses frozen mid-leap. And everywhere, men patrolling, watching, protecting or imprisoning, depending on perspective. A soft knock made me turn. Maria entered with a tray, coffee, pastries, fresh fruit arranged like art. "Good morning, Mrs. Romano. I thought you might want breakfast before." "Before what?" "Mr. Romano asked me to let you know. He'll be in his office all morning handling business." She set the tray on a small table by the window. "He wanted me to show you around the estate, help you get familiar with your new home." My new home. The words sat wrong in my mouth. "And if I don't want a tour," Maria's smile was patient, "then I'll be here if you need anything. But Mrs. Romano, Elena, if I made this can be as difficult or as easy as you make it. Mr. Romano isn't going to change his mind, and between you and me, I've worked for this family for 15 years. I've never seen him like this, the way he looks at you." She trailed off, shaking her head. "Just give it time, dear, give him a chance." She left before I could argue. I was alone with coffee that smelled like heaven and thoughts that felt like hell. I spent the morning exploring my gilded cage. The closet really did have everything. Clothes for every occasion. Shoes that actually fit. Jewelry I was afraid to touch. Everything chosen specifically for me, which meant Luca's watching had been even more thorough than I'd imagined. The thought should have made me angry. Instead, it made something twist low in my stomach. Something that felt dangerously close to being wanted. By noon, I couldn't stay in the room anymore. I went into the hallway, half expecting someone to stop me. But the house seemed quiet, except for the distant sound of voices somewhere below. I followed the sound down a grand staircase, through rooms that showed off wealth I couldn't understand, until I found myself in a library that stole my breath. Floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with books, leather, bound first editions mixed with newer paperbacks. A ladder on rails to reach the higher shelves. Windows that let in natural light to pool on Persian rugs. It was the kind of room I'd dreamed about as a child, back when books were my escape from a life that felt too small. Beautiful, isn't it? I spun around, found Luca leaning against the doorframe, watching me with that intensity that never seemed to dim. He'd changed from the wedding suit into dark jeans and a black sweater. Somehow that made him look more dangerous. More real, his hair was slightly messed up, like he'd been running his hands through it. There were shadows under his eyes that matched mine. "You didn't sleep either," I said before I could stop myself. "No." He pushed off the doorframe, moved into the room, but kept his distance, like he was afraid of scaring me. "I kept thinking about what you said, about choice, about freedom, and you're right. He shoved his hands in his pockets. A gesture that seemed almost nervous. I took those things from you, justified it by telling myself I was protecting you. But the truth is, I was just selfish. I wanted you so badly. I convinced myself the ends justified the means. I stared at him, unsure how to respond to this version of Luca, the one who seemed almost uncertain. Almost human, this library, he continued, gesturing around us. It was my mother's. She died when I was 16. Cancer. My father had this room built for her because she loved books more than anything except family. His voice went rough. She used to tell me that the right person would make me understand why people write poetry, why they go to war, why they burn the world down just to keep one person safe, Luca. I didn't believe her. He looked at me then. The raw emotion in his eyes made my chest ache. Not until I saw you in that hospital cafeteria, smiling at a crying child, and then I understood. I understood why men become monsters, because if someone tried to hurt you, Alina, I would burn the entire world to ash. The words should have terrified me. Instead, they sent heat flooding through my veins, pooling low in my belly. You don't even know me? I know you wake up early because you like watching the sunrise. I know you take your coffee with cream and 2 sugars. I know you volunteered at a free clinic every Tuesday, even though you were exhausted from your regular shifts. I know you cry at animal shelter commercials. You're afraid of spiders, but you won't kill them because you think all life has value. He took a step closer. I know that when you're nervous, you twist your hair around your finger. When you're angry, you get this little line between your eyebrows. When you're sad, you try to hide it by smiling. But your eyes give you away. Each word felt like a touch, like he was touching me even though he stood 3 feet away. That's not knowing me. That's watching me. Then let me know you. Another step. Really know you. Let me earn what I took. Let me prove that I can be more than the man who forced you into this. And if I can't, if I'll always hate you for this, pain flashed across his face, then I'll live with your hatred. As long as I know you're safe, as long as I can see you every day, I'll take whatever pieces of you you're willing to give me, Alina. Hatred, anger, indifference. I'll take it all and be grateful. The honesty in his voice broke something in me. This wasn't manipulation, this was confession, like he was laying himself bare and hoping I wouldn't destroy him. Why? The question came out barely above a whisper. Why me, Luca? What did you see that made you do this? He closed the distance between us, slowly, giving me time to move away. When I didn't, he lifted his hand, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered on my jaw. I felt the calluses. The evidence of a life lived violently, but his touch was impossibly gentle. I saw goodness. He said softly, real goodness. Not the kind people fake to get what they want. You helped that child because it was the right thing to do. Not because anyone was watching. You smiled at him like his happiness mattered to you. Even though you'd never see him again. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who only care about power and money and survival. And then I saw you, this bright spot in a dark world, and I couldn't look away. Didn't want to look away. I'm not some saint, Luca. You're perfect. The word was fierce. You're perfect, and you're mine, and I know I don't deserve you. But I'm too selfish to let you go. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He cursed under his breath, pulling it out and checking the screen. Whatever he saw made his expression harden. All that vulnerability disappearing behind a mask of cold authority. I have to take this. He stepped back. The loss of his warmth felt physical. Rico will be right outside if you need anything. Don't leave the house, Alina. Please? He was gone before I could argue, leaving me alone in his dead mother's library, my heart racing, my thoughts in chaos. 3 days passed in a strange routine. Luca would disappear hours into his office, handling business that I didn't ask about because I wasn't sure I wanted to know. But he'd find me for meals, sitting across from me at that enormous dining table, asking questions about my life, my dreams, my favorite books from the library I'd claimed as my sanctuary. He listened like every word mattered, like I was telling him the secrets of the universe instead of rambling about nursing school or the stray cat I used to feed behind my old apartment building. and slowly, terrifyingly, I found myself softening. It was the small things that undid me. The way he always made sure my coffee was exactly how I liked it. How he'd noticed I was cold one evening. The next day, every room I entered had a soft blanket waiting. The books that started appearing on my nightstand, titles I'd mentioned wanting to read. He was courting me. After forcing me to marry him, Luca Romano was courting me, with the kind of careful attention that made my chest ache. On the fourth morning, I woke to find a note slipped under my door. His handwriting was bold, decisive, like everything else about him. Garden, noon, please. The please made me smile despite myself. I found him in the rose garden, standing by the fountain with his hands in his pockets, his shoulders tense. He dressed casually again, jeans and a navy sweater, but he still looked like he belonged on a magazine cover. When he heard my footsteps, he turned, his whole face transformed with relief. You came. You said please. I stopped a few feet away. Suddenly shy, what's this about? Instead of answering, he held out his hand, walk with me. I hesitated, then placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and solid. Something in my chest loosened. This felt normal, like something a real couple would do. He led me down paths lined with roses in every color, past the fountain to a part of the garden I hadn't explored yet, and there, hidden behind a wall of climbing jasmine, was a greenhouse. My mother's project, Luca explained, pushing open the glass door. She grew medicinal herbs, used to make teas and remedies for people in the neighborhood who couldn't afford doctors. Inside, the air was humid and fragrant with growing things. Raised beds filled with plants I recognized from my nursing studies. Lavender, chamomile, echinacea, feverfew. Someone had been maintaining them, keeping her legacy alive. I thought he cleared his throat. I realized he was nervous. Luca Romano, mafia boss and feared criminal, was nervous talking to me. I thought you might want to use this space for your nursing. I know you had to leave school, but you could still practice here, help people. The families who work for me, they'd trust you. Respect you. I turned to look at him, really look at him. You'd let me do that, help people connected to your world. I'd let you do anything that makes you happy, Alina. His hand came up to cup my face. This time I didn't flinch. Even if it means putting yourself in danger, though I'd prefer you didn't. Even if it means you never forgive me for how this started. I just want to see you smile again, a real smile, not polite ones you've been giving me at dinner. The honesty in his voice, the vulnerability in his eyes. It was too much. This wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to start caring about the man who'd forced me into marriage. But here I was, standing in his dead mother's greenhouse, looking at him and seeing not a monster, but a man who was desperately, obsessively in love with me. And the terrifying part was that I could feel myself falling too. Thank you, I whispered, watched something bright and fierce light up his eyes. For trying. His thumb traced my lower lip. I felt the touch everywhere. I'll spend the rest of my life trying, Alina, every single day. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away, but I didn't. I let him close the distance, let his mouth brush against mine in a kiss that was nothing like the one at our wedding. This was heat and need and barely restrained hunger. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head to deepen the kiss. I gasped against his lips. He took advantage, his tongue sweeping into my mouth, tasting me like I was something rare and precious. My hands fisted in his sweater, pulling him closer. He groaned, a low, desperate sound that sent liquid heat pooling between my thighs. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to mine. Tell me to stop. Tell me you're not ready, and I'll walk away right now. What if I don't want you to stop? The words came out breathy, unfamiliar. This woman who was brave enough to want a dangerous man, I didn't know her, but I wanted to. His eyes went dark, pupils blown wide with desire. Then I'm taking you upstairs and showing you exactly how thoroughly you belong to me. He didn't wait for permission. He swept me up into his arms like I weighed nothing, carrying me out of the greenhouse and across the garden. I should have protested, should have demanded he put me down. Instead, I buried my face in his neck, breathing in his scent, leather and smoke and something uniquely him. We passed Rico in the hallway. I caught his knowing smirk before Luca kicked open a door I'd never entered. His bedroom, all dark wood and masculine elegance, dominated by a bed that looked sturdy enough to withstand anything. He set me down carefully. I had a moment to look around, to see the books stacked on his nightstand, the jacket thrown over a chair, the evidence of a life lived in this space. Then his hands were on me, pulling me back against his chest, his mouth hot against my neck. Last chance. He murmured against my skin. Tell me no, and I'll take you back to your room. No judgment, no pressure. I turned in his arms, reached up to cup his face. Feeling the stubble rough against my palms, I don't want to say no. Something savage flashed across his features. Thank God, his mouth crashed down on mine. This kiss was nothing like the careful ones before. This was possession. Claiming need stripped bare. He walked me backward until my legs hit the bed, then followed me down, his weight pressing me into the mattress. I should have felt trapped. Instead, I felt safe, protected, wanted in a way I'd never experienced. His hands moved over me, mapping every curve through my clothes, like he was memorizing me by touch. When he reached the hem of my sweater, he paused, his eyes meeting mine in silent question. I nodded. He pulled it off in one smooth motion, leaving me in just my bra and jeans. Beautiful, he breathed, his gaze traveling over me with an intensity that made me shiver. So beautiful. His mouth found my collarbone, trailing kisses down to the swell of my breasts. When he reached behind me to unhook my bra, I grabbed his wrist. Your turn. A slow smile curved his lips, the first real smile I'd seen from him. It transformed his face completely. He sat back, pulled his sweater over his head, revealing a body that made my mouth go dry. Sculpted muscle and tan skin scattered with scars that told stories of violence survived. A tattoo covered his left shoulder and chest, an intricate design of a phoenix rising from flames, wings spread wide. I traced the bird with trembling fingers. What does it mean? Rebirth. His hand covered mine, pressing it against his heart. I could feel it racing beneath my palm. I got it after my mother died. A reminder that even when everything burns down, something new can rise from the ashes. The vulnerability in his voice made my chest tight. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, was letting me see him. Really see him, all the broken pieces he kept hidden from the world. I pulled him back down to me, kissing him with everything I couldn't put into words. His groan vibrated against my lips as his hands moved to my jeans, unbuttoning and sliding them down my legs. When I was bare except for my underwear, he pulled back to look at me. What I saw in his expression stole my breath. Wonder, reverence, like he couldn't believe I was real. 2 years, he said roughly. I've spent 2 years imagining this, imagining you in my bed, looking at me like you don't hate me, and the reality is so much better than any fantasy. He stripped off the rest of his clothes. I tried not to stare, tried and failed. He was magnificent, all hard muscle and dangerous grace, fully aroused and unashamed. When he settled between my thighs, the weight of him, the heat, it was overwhelming in the best way. If I hurt you, he started, but I cut him off with a kiss. You won't. He proved me right. Every touch was careful, worshipful, designed to bring me pleasure. When he finally slid inside me, filling me completely, we both gasped. He held still, his forehead pressed to mine, his breath coming in harsh pants. Mine, he whispered. Finally mine. Then he started to move. I forgot everything except the feeling of him, the connection between us. The way he said my name like a prayer. It was intense and overwhelming and perfect. When I shattered around him, he followed. My name on his lips like a blessing. Afterwards, he held me close, his heartbeat strong beneath my ear. I love you, he murmured into my hair. I know it's too soon. I know I have no right, but I've loved you since that day in the hospital, and I'll love you until my last breath. I should have been afraid of that kind of devotion. Instead, curled in his arms with his scent surrounding me, I felt something dangerous blooming in my chest. something that felt suspiciously like love. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and careful confessions. Luca still disappeared for business, but he always came back to me. We'd have dinner together, talking about everything and nothing. He'd find me in the library and read beside me in comfortable silence. At night, I'd end up in his bed. Learning his body and letting him learn mine, I was falling, God help me. I was falling for my captor. But the outside world couldn't stay away forever. On a Tuesday morning, I woke to shouting Luca's voice. Sharp with command, coming from somewhere downstairs, I threw on a robe and hurried down, following the sound to his office. The door was slightly open. Through it, I could see Luca behind a huge desk, his face carved from stone. Rico stood beside him, along with 2 other men I didn't recognize, and across from them, my blood turned to ice. Please, the man was saying. I recognized him. Vincent Russo, one of my father's old friends. Just give me more time. I can get the money. You've had 6 months. Luca's voice was cold. Emotionless, this was the mafia boss I'd heard about, not the man who held me gently in the dark. The agreement was clear. You knew the consequences of failing to deliver. But my daughter, she's sick. The treatments, I had to use the money for her treatments. That's not my problem. I must have made a sound, because suddenly every eye in the room turned to me. Luca's expression shifted immediately, from cold authority to concern. Elena, his daughter is sick. I stepped into the room, ignoring Rico's warning look. How old? Vincent looked at me with desperate hope. 7, she has leukemia. The treatments are expensive, and Elena, this doesn't concern you. Luca stood, moving around the desk toward me. Go back upstairs. No. I planted my feet, meeting his eyes. You told me you'd let me help people. Let me help him. This is business. This is a man trying to save his daughter's life. I turned to Vincent. How much do you owe? Elena. Luca's voice held a warning. How much? I repeated. 200,000. Vincent whispered. I looked at Luca, at this man I was falling in love with, and made a choice: forgive his debt. The room went silent. Rico's eyes widened. The other men looked shocked. But Luca just stared at me, his expression unreadable. You don't understand what you're asking, he said quietly. I understand perfectly. You told me you'd burn the world for me, so burn this debt, please. Something shifted in his eyes. If I do this, if I show mercy here, others will see it as weakness. They'll think they can take advantage. Let them think what they want. I moved closer. Close enough to place my hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat spike beneath my palm. Show them that Luca Romano's wife has influence, that I'm not just some trophy you keep locked away. Show them that you value my opinion enough to grant mercy when I ask for it. He stared at me for a long moment. I could see the war happening behind his eyes, business versus emotion, power versus love. Then he looked at Vincent. The debt is forgiven, his voice carrying absolute authority. On one condition: your daughter gets the best treatment available, and you bring her to see my wife when she's better. Elena likes children. She'll want to know the girl as well. Vincent's face crumpled with relief. Thank you, God, thank you. Thank her. Luca nodded toward me. And understand this, you owe her everything now. That means if she ever needs anything at all, you answer without question. Understood? Yes, of course, anything. Rico ushered Vincent out. Suddenly Luca and I were alone in his office. He pulled me into his arms, burying his face in my neck. Do you have any idea what you just did? He murmured against my skin. I helped someone. You showed weakness, my weakness. He pulled back to look at me. I saw fear in his eyes. People will know now that they can use you against me, that hurting you is the fastest way to hurt me, then protect me. I cupped his face. You're already so good at it. He laughed, but it sounded pained. I can't protect you from everything, Elena. And now that the families know how much you mean to me, they'll come after you. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually someone will try to take you from me. Let them try. I kissed him softly. I'm not going anywhere. But even as I said it, even as he held me tight and whispered promises against my lips, I felt the first whisper of unease, because in Luca's world, love wasn't just a gift, it was a weapon. and I'd just painted a target on my back. The attack came 3 days later. I was in the greenhouse, transplanting herbs. Humming to myself when I heard the first gunshot. The sound shattered the peaceful afternoon like glass breaking. For a moment I froze, my hands buried in soil, unable to process what I'd heard. Then chaos erupted. More shots, rapid fire coming from the front of the estate, shouting, the sound of vehicles screeching. Rico burst through the greenhouse door, his gun drawn, his face grim. "Mrs. Romano, we need to move now. What's happening now?" He grabbed my arm, pulling me toward a door I'd never noticed before, hidden behind a wall of climbing vines. It opened to reveal a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. "There's a safe room. You'll be secure there until—" The greenhouse exploded in a shower of glass. I screamed as Rico threw himself over me, covering my body with his as shards rained down around us. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard him cursing. Felt wetness that I realized with horror was his blood. "Rico, go." He shoved me toward the stairs. "Lock yourself in. Don't open for anyone except Mr. Romano or me. Go." I ran, my feet bare and bleeding from the glass. My heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. The stairs seemed endless, spiraling down into a basement I hadn't known existed. At the bottom, a steel door with a keypad. Rico had shouted numbers at me. I punched them in with shaking fingers, sobbing with relief when the lock clicked open. Inside was a room designed for exactly this scenario. Reinforced walls, monitors showing security feeds from around the estate, weapons locked in a cabinet. Supplies for a long siege. I slammed the door shut and engaged the locks, then collapsed against it, trying to breathe through the panic. On the monitors, I could see the battle unfolding. Men in black tactical gear had broken through the gates, pouring onto the grounds. Luca's security was fighting back, but they were outnumbered, and there, my breath caught, was Luca himself, moving with deadly grace, a gun in each hand, taking down attackers with the cold efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. This was what I'd been protected from seeing. This was the reality of Luca's world. Violence and blood and death dealt out as casually as breathing. I watched him fight his way toward the house, toward me, realized with stunning clarity that I couldn't lose him. Not now, not when I'd finally admitted to myself that I loved him. The monitors showed the attackers retreating, leaving bodies scattered across the perfect lawn. Luca was shouting orders, coordinating his men, checking casualties. I saw him grab Rico. Thank God Rico was alive, and say something urgent. Rico pointed toward the greenhouse. Luca took off running. I counted the seconds until I heard footsteps thundering down the stairs, then his voice. Rough and desperate, "Elena, open the door." My hands fumbled with the locks. The door flew open. Suddenly, I was crushed against his chest, his arms like steel bands around me, his face buried in my hair. "Are you hurt?" His hands moved over me frantically, checking for injuries. "Did they touch you? Did anyone?" "I'm fine." Rico protected me. I pulled back to look at him and gasped. Blood streaked his face, his shirt torn and stained. "You're hurt?" "Not my blood." He cupped my face in hands that shook slightly. "When I heard the explosion, when I saw the greenhouse destroyed." His voice broke. "I thought I'd lost you. Thought I was too late. I'm here, I'm okay." I covered his hands with mine. "Who were they?" His expression hardened. "The Castellano family. They thought taking you would break me, send a message." He pressed his forehead to mine. "If anything had happened to you, but it didn't. Your security held them off. You held them off. This time." The words were bitter. "But there will be others, Elena. As long as you're with me, you'll be in danger. People will see you as my weakness, my vulnerability." I understood what he was offering. An out, a chance to run, to choose the safe life I'd lost when my father made his fatal mistakes. "I'm not leaving," I said firmly. "Elena." "I'm not leaving. You told me you'd spend your life trying to earn what you took. Well, I'm giving it to you freely now, all of it. My trust, my heart, my future. I choose this, Luca. I choose you." The emotion that crossed his face was almost painful to witness. "You don't know what you're saying. The fear, the adrenaline. I know exactly what I'm saying. I stood on my toes to kiss him. Tasting blood and smoke and him. I love you. I probably started loving you when you showed me the greenhouse, when you tried so hard to give me back the pieces of my life you'd taken, when you looked at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. You are. His voice was fierce. You're everything, Elena, my reason for breathing, the only good thing in my entire life. He kissed me then, hard and desperate, like he was trying to pour all his fear and relief and love into the contact. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. I need to handle this. Need to send a message that anyone who comes after you will face consequences they can't imagine. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. But first, I need to know you're truly safe. Come with me. He led me up the stairs, through a house that now bore evidence of the attack. Bullet holes in walls, shattered windows, blood on the marble floors. Staff were already cleaning, repairing, erasing the violence like it had never happened. This was their normal. In his office, Luca pulled out his phone, made a series of calls. I listened to him arrange meetings, issue threats, consolidate power. This was the mafia boss the world feared. Cold, calculating, absolutely ruthless. But when he looked at me between calls, his eyes softened. For me, he was still just the man who brought me coffee exactly how I liked it. The Castellano family will be dealt with by morning, he said when the last call ended. They'll understand that touching you means war, a war they can't win, more death. I felt sick. Because of me, because of them. He pulled me onto his lap, wrapping his arms around me. They made the choice to attack. I'm just making sure they regret it. We sat like that for a long time. His heartbeat steady beneath my ear, his hands stroking my hair. Outside the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Like fire, like rebirth, marry me again, Luca said suddenly. I pulled back to look at him. We're already married? I know, but the first time you had no choice. You stood in that church hating me, terrified, forced into vows you didn't mean. His hands cupped my face. I want to do it right this time. I want you to walk down that aisle choosing me, wanting me. I want to hear you say those vows and know you mean every word. Tears burned my eyes. You're asking me to marry you. I'm begging you to marry me. He smiled. It was beautiful and vulnerable, and so full of love it made my chest ache. Be my wife, not because you have to, but because you want to. Because you love me even though I'm a monster. Because you see the man beneath the violence and choose him anyway. Yes. The word came out choked with tears. Yes, I'll marry you again, as many times as you want. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise, and I knew that this moment, this choice was the real beginning. Everything before had been prologue. The second wedding was nothing like the first. We held it in the garden 2 weeks later, just as summer turned to autumn. No crowds of criminals and curious eyes, just the people who mattered. Maria, Rico with his arm in a sling, a handful of Luca's most trusted men, and Vincent Russo with his daughter, 7 years old and in remission, clutching flowers she'd picked herself. I wore a simple white dress that I'd chosen myself, my hair loose and crowned with roses from the greenhouse, and when I walked down the path toward Luca, I did it with a smile on my face and love in my heart. He looked at me like I was a miracle, like he still couldn't believe I was real. The priest, a different one, older with kind eyes, kept the ceremony short and simple. When it came time for vows, Luca took my hands in his. I promise to protect you, he said, his voice rough with emotion. To cherish you, to spend every day earning the gift of your love. I promise to be the man you deserve, even when I fail, to try harder, to be better, because you make me want to be better, Elena. You make me believe I can be more than the violence I was born into. I squeezed his hands, tears streaming down my face. I promise to stand beside you, to trust you, to see the man you really are, not the one the world thinks you are. I promise to love you through the darkness, through the fear, through everything this life will throw at us, because you're worth it, Luca, we're worth it. When he kissed me this time, it was soft and reverent, a promise of forever. The celebration afterwards was small but joyful. Maria had prepared a feast, Someone had strung lights through the trees that twinkled like stars as night fell. Rico toasted us with champagne, his eyes suspiciously wet. Vincent's daughter presented me with her flowers. I hugged her tight, thinking about the life Luca had saved by forgiving that debt. As the evening wore on, Luca pulled me away from the party, to a quiet corner of the garden where jasmine perfumed the air. "Happy?" he asked, pulling me into his arms. Deliriously, I rested my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, though I never imagined my life would turn out like this. Married to a mobster. Married to the love of my life who happens to be a mobster. I tilted my head back to look at him. "There's a difference." He laughed. The sound free and genuine. "You're insane. You know that, right? Any sane person would have run." "Probably." I traced the line of his jaw. "But where's the fun in sanity?" He kissed me again, deeper this time. I felt the promise in it, the forever we just committed to. It wouldn't be easy. Loving a man like Luca Romano never would be. There would be more attacks, more violence, more darkness to navigate, but there would also be mornings in the greenhouse, teaching neighborhood children about healing herbs, quiet evenings in the library, reading while he worked beside me, nights in his arms where the rest of the world disappeared and there was only us. I'd started this journey as a prisoner, a debt payment, property to be collected and kept. Now I was a wife, a partner, a woman who'd found love in the most unexpected place and chosen to keep it despite everything. "What are you thinking?" Luca murmured against my hair, that my father's debt was the worst thing that ever happened to me. I pulled back to meet his eyes, and the best, because it brought me to you. His smile was brilliant, transforming his face. "I spent 2 years watching you, wanting you, thinking you were completely out of my reach, and now you're here, mine, choosing to stay, always, I promised. For better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. Until death do us part," he finished, and kissed me as fireworks exploded overhead. Rico's idea probably, painting the sky in gold and silver. We stood there together, wrapped in each other, while the world celebrated around us, and I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice. I'd chosen love over fear, partnership over freedom, a dangerous man with a gentle heart over a safe life that would have never been quite enough. I'd chosen Luca Romano, and I'd choose him again every single day for the rest of my life. The greenhouse still stood, rebuilt and beautiful. The library still held endless worlds in its shelves. The garden still bloomed with roses and jasmine and the promise of new growth. And in the center of it all we stood, two broken people who'd found wholeness in each other, a love story that had started with force and fear, but had bloomed into something real and rare and absolutely worth fighting for. This was my life now, my choice, my forever. And God help anyone who tried to take it from me.